Welcome, everyone. On behalf of NASSCOM and on behalf of NetApp, my pleasure to welcome you and also welcome my two co-panelists today, Samit. Samit heads cloud operations and customer support for Amdocs globally, running out of India. And then we have Senthil Ramani. Senthil is the data and AI lead globally for Accenture. Both of you, very warm welcome. Really looking forward to what I hope is an insightful conversation. Everyone seems to be talking about GenAI, right? I don't think last year anybody really was. This year, everybody is. And I think there's a good reason for it. And I think what we're going to spend a few minutes today with all of you is talk about what's real, what's actually been working, where is the experimentation occurring, and we've got two people that have kind of got a very diverse kind of set of experiences that they're going to be able to share with us. And just so there's no suspense, I'm going to just talk to you all about the three things we'll kind of talk about. We'll talk about the value that's delivered by AI, and particularly by GenAI. We'll talk about standardized manners in which these are playing out in the industry, to the extent that it is getting settled into practices and reference architectures. And then finally, we can't have a conversation on this without talking about talent. So we'll spend a good degree of time on talent and how we are developing talent in that space. So with that, let me start with a very open-ended question and just talk about the value that you all are seeing delivered by AI in both your spaces. And maybe I'll start with you. Your context, of course, is you're talking to a large number of global CIOs. You're talking to them across verticals. Where are you seeing real value? Where are you seeing real best practice? Where do you see the experimentation? What's the learning?
Absolutely. And Ravi, let me kind of start with the frame of what happened 3 weeks back at Davos. So we had an opportunity to host over 160 CEOs and vice chairman and part of the board as well. And there were 3 critical questions, they had. Number one was really the strategic investments. They know they have to invest in GenAI. The question was, what is the capital allocation? And more importantly, what is the talent allocation? Because they got to get people out of the businesses or in the businesses to be doing that. So that was kind of the first thing. The second question that they had was the classic question, in every conference right now, exactly back to your point, which is how do you move from POCs into scale? Right? That was the second one. And the third one was really around talent. People know that there is going to be a deep impact on talent. The question is, what is that impact, and how do you influence the enterprise and the organization to do that?
Yep.
Now, we've done over 700 engagements, in the past 8 months in GenAI, and we've learned a lot, right, out of these 700 engagements. And probably, if I have to say the anatomy of success of the ones that are scaling, right, at the macro level, there are 2 points. Number one is that they clearly are reinventing away from going from POCs into thinking of this as a business value reinvention exercise across their process chain. So that's number one, not applying siloed use cases, if you will. The second important anatomy, and this is actually really important in the context of AI and GenAI, is that while GenAI cracked the code on language, AI did crack the code on numbers. And both are important for enterprises. So when you really look at it, any enterprise needs to have GenAI and AI in that concert. So the folks that are getting it right know that it's just not all about GenAI, but it's a concert of GenAI and kind of classical AI coming together. Now, if I pat that down into the 4 things on what we are seeing now, to your question, number one is if you really look at the industries, and I'm sure he will talk about the communications industry really well. So I'll leave that. That's one of the 5 industries that really firing right now in terms of GenAI. I would say the banking insurance industry. Example of that is underwriting as a complete capability. We're starting to see an increase of close to 10% in revenue that you can do. You can profile, into your P&L based on GenAI, right?
You're not talking just productivity. You're talking actually being able to generate revenue, enhance your product.
Exactly, because the breadth and depth of what you can do with GenAI, with just the portfolio that you have in underwriting, exactly back to your point, has increased phenomenally. The second thing that we are starting to see is life sciences is drug discovery. If you look at it, in travel, consumer, and retail, it's completely changing the customer interactions and engagement and getting into hyper-personalization because GenAI is all about relevance and context, if you will. So table stakes, a lot of table stakes out there, like you've got to be doing that. It's non-differentiating. That's contact centers, marketing, etc. And there are these strategic bets that I talked about, which are critical as well. kind of brings me back into this whole point around talent, data, and responsible AI, which I'm sure
Which
we'll
we'll come
talk
back
about
to.
more.
Which we'll
Exactly.
come back to.
Exactly.
Samit, your perspective?
Yeah, so if I take the communication service providers market, see, we are in this space for about 40 years as Amdocs. This is our vertical that we are working on. And what we see is that for all our customers, there are three things that matters. Number one, they want to retain their subscribers. Very difficult in a churn-oriented market. Number two, they want to gain more revenues. Okay, and they know that this market is very challenged as well for that. And number three is how much cost can they take out? How much reduction of cost they can do? So if you look at all the three areas, they are actually firing on all the cylinders. I'll just give you some classic examples that is being played out. So for example, one of the areas where customers are unhappy and frustrated is about their billing cost. And they many times get a lot of bill shock. So today we already have POCs in place and are working with North American customers that we have, some of them, where we do something called a bill assist. And what is happening now, instead of somebody like you and me calling up the call center and trying to get an answer as to why I'm having such a large bill, the GenAI can be activated over there. That picks up the information completely in the system because all the things that I'm doing as a subscriber is residing in the system. So you do not need some agent to come and study all of that and then come and explain. GenAI can do that much faster, much quicker, and much cheaper. Another area which is coming up is, for example, when the operators are trying to come up with a very good package or a promotion or a plan. And normally this is a very high time consuming work, a lot of market research, a lot of data and so on. GenAI can look into it using the last 20 years of data that works, what works in the market and in which market and in which geography. So they can come up with something like a catalog related assist. Okay, so our products, what we are doing in Amdocs is that we are coming up with product versions almost on a quarterly basis, which should allow you as an operator to select and create the promotions and packages, which will allow you to go back to the subscribers, and that will have a better uptake. That's something which we are again trying out on. Now, if you package these things, one, it can help you to improve your revenues. Two, it can reduce the churn and the frustration that the customers go through when you are interacting with the operator. And three, it also starts to reduce some of the operational expenses that you are having today with the call centers that Senthil talked about, or even with the regular activities that you are having in operations that you are managing over there.
So let me ask you just a little follow-up on this one. Telcos have been recognized, I think, for the last 30 years, maybe because of the disruption that they sit in ever through, the US telephone company kind of got broken up and started competing with each other.
Yeah.
It's been a very hyper kind of innovation-driven company.
Correct.
So I get the use cases they're going after, but have they cracked the code on the infrastructure and the platforms, or are they experimenting? So is this like the early wins, or are you seeing that there's going to be something that's longer, more disruptive?
See, I think these are early wins because this is where the POCs are now starting to meet the road. Okay, so the rubber is now starting to meet the road. I think in the coming quarters, we should see a much faster pickup of all these technology-oriented use cases, and that can be finally leveraged by the telcos to really see their costs going down and revenues going up. But what do you see over there? Because you are playing with a lot of data. So what do you see?
And so as a company, we've been really grateful for this kind of opportunity. And it's not a one-year opportunity. It's been going on for a while. As you talked about, Sen, AI has been around for a really long time. And generative is one aspect of AI, but predictive has always been going on. And it starts with basic things like regression, not even large language models. And I think what we've started seeing in the infra space is what's different now. There's probably a dozen companies, maybe 5, 10, maybe you have to count on your toes a little bit, but that are building large foundational models, right? And for them, when they look at data, they look at high performance data. But for everyone else that's using it, it's not that you're going to build the model, but you're going to leverage the model. You're going to augment the model. You're going to incorporate your own data. You're going to worry about where is it running, in the cloud? Is it going to run on your premise? And the answer is both. And it's not just one cloud. So for a lot of the customers that we are looking at, the basic model of enterprise cloud-oriented hybrid multi-cloud architecture has remained the same. But the performance needs are changing. The privacy needs are getting a little bit more. I mean, privacy in a data center used to mean whether I'm masking personally identifiable information. Now you worry about a whole bunch of things, including what are the governance practices, what are the governance regulations across the world. You throw in AI, it kind of makes that even more complex. So I think what we are seeing is a convergence. For the first time, you're seeing now performance is back in the game, innovation is back in the game, which excites all of us. And then you also have to be able to meet the more traditional kind of needs of kind of being able to govern data, being able to protect data, be able to privacy enhance data, to be able to be responsible about AI sense, which is a topic I think you want to get to next. So let me ask you that question, right? Back to you. As you're looking at the value being delivered, right? What are the top of mind practices, standardizations that are coming up, and what's driving them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, when we went back into, there are really four vectors that you can look at from a playbook perspective. Number one was the value and the strategic investments that you got to do, which are table stakes and the strategic bets that I kind of talked about, and allocating capital and the talent for that. And you would start to unpack that. The next unpacking is really around data. I mean, the spotlight is on data right now, and it's never been this way. In the past, people said data was important. Enterprises understood data was important. But what is happening with data right now is that there are newer architectures, there are newer data forms that are there, like unstructured data, synthetic data, etc. So the architectures are changing. Back to your point, there is a spotlight on governance right now, actually, significantly, as to how do you really, and that actually links back into the responsible AI topic quite significantly. Less than 2% of organizations globally have a systemic end-to-end responsible AI method today, which means there's a lot of work that we need to do. And responsible AI starts right when you start to identify the business context as well as the data. So it's from there. And it's also about the 3 Ps, as I call it, which is how do you move away from policy into practice, into really becoming a pioneer. And that is just beyond just good quality AI models. It's also about the brand that you send out as who you are as an enterprise out into the market. And then the last one, of course, is talent. And I know we're going to unpack talent a bit here as well, but a focus on talent is going to be, critical as well.
I'll plug in again on the data part of it. You correctly say a lot of it is unstructured data. A lot of it is also data locked into applications, right? So when you kind of think about where your customer data is, it's sitting in a CRM system. When you think about where your supplier data is, it's in a supplier information system. You look at where your master data is, it's sitting in a master database. There's an ERP system. And I think as we are trying to bring together data sources and kind of draw inference at that intersection, even on generative AI, right? The intersection of data sources. It's an amazingly exciting problem, is what I'm going to say, right? And so the opportunity is really huge. Let's talk a little bit more. Responsible AI. Practically, what does it mean in the telco segment?
Yeah. So look, in telco, for the last 30 years, data which is existing is humongous, absolutely humongous. For all of us over here, everybody's using the telco services, whether it is voice, whether it is SMS, whether it is data, everything is being used. And you have loads and loads of data which is available. So it is extremely important to understand how it is being leveraged. Okay, you cannot use the personal space that is there. You also know that you have government-related information which has to be also regulated. You know that there are financial information that is also being passed on in various channels. Responsible AI is to make sure that you are not compromising anything for the subscriber at the end of the day or the security aspects of the government at the end of the day. So you need to be careful about how you are utilizing it. And that's where I think whether it is the telcos themselves or the service providers like Amdocs, for example, we need to partner to understand what can be leveraged and what cannot be. We have to draw the lines very clearly between all these different areas because there are myriad of issues that can come up in the process. But at the end of the day, what we need to look at is how you are being able to solve the business problems, how you are being able to add value to the end subscriber, because that's where they are looking for some kind of an advantage over there. Just think about the fact that when we get into an airport or when we are on the road and we are not being able to make a call because there is some call quality issues happening, or there is a network outage, or there is a software outage which is giving us a pain. How can GenAI be leveraged and utilized to stop that kind of a disturbance that we go through? And today there's a lot that keeps happening. We keep reading about it. Also, in the security space, you keep hearing that there are security breaches that are taking place. How can we bring in GenAI into play so that we do not have this kind of breaches taking place?
So I'm going to ask a slightly broader question. Maybe you all will interpret it a little differently. So when you look at it, this intersection of innovation potential, the ability to transform a business, and then all these constraining aspects, right? And they're very legitimate: governance, privacy, security. Do you see that the infrastructure is in place? Are you just leveraging technology? Is there something new that needs to be invented? Senthil, you've been a proponent of open source. Where do you see these platforms in their evolution?
Got it. So as of last count, before I got on the stage here, there are 1,020 foundation models out there that Accenture is tracking right now. And with all humility, probably that's not a lot, or probably
you're saying
it's not all a
Accenture
lot.
is what?
We are tracking 1,020 foundation
Okay.
models within our garden, right? So that's a lot of choice for our customers. But choice can also be frustrating sometimes because you got to make those decisions, you got to move faster, and those decisions need to be made in the right manner, whether that's cost, latency, sustainability, business context, and so on and so forth, and responsible AI as well, like Samit was saying. So one of the key things is how do you make those choices, and how do you make sure that you're not locked into either a proprietary one or it is a cloud-based one, which is more open source, if you will, because all GenAI solutions are cloud-based. So it's a fundamental need that everybody's got to be at least have their data on the cloud, if you will. So those are choices that we are helping our clients make. At this point in time, is how do you go from 1020 into really making those 3 or 4 models that can materially be important for you, which can arrive at and help with a lot of the business context that you have in an enterprise at this
Do you
point.
worry that as you select 3 or 4 out of 1,020, that you're going to introduce bias into the system also?
That's a great point. And that's why you need to kind of start back with the RAI basics here, right? Is to go back and look at those models in terms of what is more important for you. Because RAI has 7 key principles. Responsible AI has 7 key principles. Now, you can't achieve all of it at the same time. It's all about balance between the trust, bias, accuracy, explainability, fairness, and so on and so forth. Some business cases will require probably an accentuation towards more explainability. For example, consumer facing, billing as an example. But some cases might be actually more around the fairness, aspect of it. So it's really those levers that you actually play around with which you choose those foundation models.
Super. Same question to you, Samit, but maybe you talk about it in terms of what you're practicing now. Are you working with established outcomes that you know can be accomplished with the technology in front of you? Are you also experimenting? Where are you with that?
I think we're doing both, but our focus is mainly on the first one.
First one.
On the
I
first
think,
one.
yeah.
Because what we are doing is we are leveraging the 40 years of experience that we have in this field, and we are using the telco taxonomy that we have already been able to establish,
Yep.
and then use it in the LLM for all the different repositories of data that exist. So whether it is the solution, whether it is the code, whether it is the operations, whether it is the incident volumes, so whether in the entire life cycle ecosystem of operations to development to design to architecture, we have that data. So we are trying to solve those problems faster and then probably start to go into more experimentation and see what more can be done.
Super. So NetApp calls itself a 30-year-old startup. You've been working in a very volatile kind of disruptive industry for the 40 years.
Yeah.
You've been kind of talking to all kinds of people about all kinds of things. How is the world for you changing in terms of talent?
Yeah.
Right? Can you just carry this forward? It's just another tool. Somebody's been using a screwdriver and you're telling them, here's a wrench? Or what is it?
You want to go first?
Okay, sure, I can do that. So look, as far as talent is concerned, the first thing that we are trying to deliver over here to our employees is that this is a major business transformation taking place. It is less of a technology transformation, it is more about a business transformation that is taking place. And we are first trying to take them along with us that, look, GenAI is going to be your ally. You cannot treat GenAI as something like a competitor of your job. You have to treat it like a co-pilot, true blue co-pilot. And use that example, even though it is often taken these days, which is about the pilot for an aircraft, what it was 40 years back and what it is today. Okay? So truly you have a co-pilot with you. Whether you're doing development, you have a co-pilot which should help you to take the mundane work away from you, give more creative aspects back to you. Whether you are an operator, the same way in operation support you are going to do that, get into the more technical aspects of it and leave the mundane to the solutions from GenAI. So that aspect I think is playing out well right now. Because if you look at it, the senior people on the table over here and people out there, you are creating more of a vision. We are trying to give them the path, we are trying to lay down the roads for them. But the actual execution is in their hands. And that's where I think they are imbibing this and trying to take it along over there. I think in the coming days, when we hire people, just like we used to look for, do you know Python or do you know Java? You need to understand, do you know how to work with a copilot? And if the area where you are trying to apply your job for, you know how to work with a copilot, then I think you are a good talent. I would like to take you along with me. So the adaptability and the positive attitude of picking up this particular trend is something that we will look forward to in the coming days.
And are you going to find it? Or are you going to create it? What do you think
I think it will
happens?
be both. I think in the coming days, I feel we should be able to find it. I think we should use probably NASSCOM to create some kind of those skill sets that is relevant in the coming days.
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
You and I were talking about that
Exactly.
with the NASSCOM folks.
Exactly. So I think we can create that.
Sen, your view?
I kind of want to amplify what he said. At least the starting point is that I think we need more people who understand GenAI and can work with GenAI. I think that's a fundamental thing, and it's counterintuitive to the narrative that's going around jobs. The way I look at talent is really three parts, right? Work is changing, workforce is changing, and worker is changing. Yeah. And it's important to understand all three aspects: work, worker, and workforce. And if you unpack that, really, the most important thing is, and the alarming statistic that I want to kind of share with all of you is that there is less than 5% of organizations who are spending time and capital on reskilling their workforce. And that's a massive number, right? If you look at it, 95% of organizations aren't, doing that yet. And that's where I would say the first penny needs to drop, and people need to be spending time, money, and this starts with the leaders, if you will, right? On the same. And which is why I was saying the way we did this in Davos was we turned that into a GenAI Academy, to learn and, to educate everybody on that. The second important thing is what we're doing to ourselves, which is kind of the question that you were asking is, we've created what we call as required 12 or the R12 roles, within Accenture. We said, these are the 12 roles that really matter for you for the future of understanding data and AI across Accenture. So we typically try and do it to ourselves first before we go and earn the right to go tell our clients, about the context. Which is what we started to do now. We are training 250,000 people right now on GenAI, and close to around 20,000 already now in India as well. And we believe that transition is going to be really important for talent.
Yeah, in fact, building it on your... Go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to add one more thing over there. Is I think like even in our organization where we have started to train these thousands of people, the good news that we see over there is that people are picking up on their own also. And we see that they are coming up with their own use cases of how it can help in the work that they're doing. So the worker, which is going to change, and the type of work that is going to change, I see the green shoots already, which is very, very promising. That they are coming and telling the managers, hey, I can use it like this, I can use it like that, I can therefore bring down my work cost this much, I can improve my productivity that much. It's a healthy discussion that is starting to take place. So I agree that it is a bit counterintuitive that people are saying it is scaring people, and they are afraid that jobs will go away. But I see a little more promising aspect over here.
Maybe I'll put in the plug for some of the work my organization at NetApp has been doing with NASSCOM. I had you meet with the team too, Samit. So at some point, we kind of got to a sort of a very self-driven kind of a understanding that a lot of us in technology are beneficiaries of a very strong meritocracy. What you know and what you've educated yourself defines where you end up in life, right? And then you add that to the kind of big narrative in India, a 25 million youth entering the workforce in the next 6 years. And so at some point, we started having that conversation with NASSCOM and came to this realization that India at its core is building a massive platform across many institutions to be able to reskill talent, to be able to build talent. I don't know if you all know, but there is this national framework that allows students to take 2 degrees at the same time, right? So we started kind of contributing in some ways to data-oriented skills as part of NASSCOM's Future Skills program. And I'll tell you this, compared to most companies in the room today, we are probably 1/20th, maybe 100th the size of most of you here, right? But that platform that they've created makes it so easy to take even what used to be a niche skill 2 years ago, and it's a mainstream skill now, which is being able to manage data kind of to the masses, right? They've got a platform that reaches 1 million. So I think we're kind of all united in that framework, right? That this is a skill that needs to be provided. I just want you all to kind of close out maybe with your few closing thoughts on this topic. I'll leave you all with this topic. I look at what happened during the pandemic. Had 4G not happened in India, and the last mile fiber not been created, I think India would have been a little disconnected globally. Any one of us that work for a multinational just knows that we were hyper efficient and engaged and connected during the pandemic. That was not something you could take for granted 2 years ago. And I'd like to throw two thoughts to you all. If we build out a large data infrastructure in India, which is happening around data, around AI data centers, and you have the largest talent pool, I think that's a big multiplier for the future of this company. I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to kind of share your closing thoughts.
Sure. I mean, from my point of view, I would say that, look, telecom space where we operate is something that connects all of us in this room and people outside. So it connects the entire world. I see a plethora of opportunities in this space, therefore, to improve the kind of services that will be ultimately provided to the subscriber bases, both consumer as well as enterprise. And at the same time, this can be one of the major levers to reduce the operational expenses that the telcos have been looking for the last 30 years almost.
Agreed.
Probably 3 words to summarize, right? Learn, educate, and reskill. I think that's where the focus needs to be on.
Super. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we are at time. Sen and Samit, I think you all are both going to be around. Sen, you're leaving a little early, but for any of you, I don't know if we have time for questions, but we're definitely going to be around, some of us, so if you need to reach out to us.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASSCOM YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.